because of the technology was not strong, was not powerful enough to see that galaxies were actually far away, much farther away than the stars that we see in the Milky Way, and the stars we had seen before. Then when galaxies were discovered, we saw that the universe was much larger than the galaxy.
It was spinning way too fast for it to still be intact, based on that motion being caused by gravity. And that gravity requires a proportionate amount of mass. And that
No, sorry, I didn't get that.
you didn't hear. I said they saw the galaxy spinning too fast. So the gravity that's
the spinning of the galaxy was discovered a little
Let me, can
later.
I add a little bit? Can I add a little context to the dark matter galaxy situation real quick?
Please.
So in cosmology, right, in astronomy, there's this thing called the noble ladder. And this is how they've established distances for everything, right? And they say, like, the first rung of the ladder would be like parallax or radio wave observations where they can, confirm a physical distance or something like that, right? And then they move on outwards and they're like, okay, based on the apparent luminosity, like the apparent magnitude of that star or whatever, or galaxy, the brightness, right? They're like, okay, it must have this much mass in it. Now, what they do for everything in the sky, there's an apparent magnitude and there's a absolute magnitude. Now, what you see with your eyes is the quote unquote apparent magnitude, and that's always a lesser value for mass and stuff, right? Now, what they do is they've all agreed that there's an absolute magnitude, which is like the true value, right? So this value is an unseen, like we don't see this brightness spectrum, right? It's not that bright, but they attribute an extra amount of brightness to it. And from that, they extrapolate how much mass would be required in that galaxy to produce that, right? So they've got this whole ladder set up, right, of established known facts and how they're building out into the cosmos to determine distances and whatnot, and masses and sizes. And then they find these galaxies that are that have a value for their absolute magnitude. So they're like, okay, it must be this, it must weigh this much. And then it's rotating too fast though, and it doesn't have enough mass to hold itself together. So they were like, oh man, you know what? Let me see here. What could we do? All right, well, maybe it's surrounded by some other object that doesn't interact with the electromagnetic spectrum, and that's substituting the amount of mass that would be required to hold this galaxy together while it rotates. Okay, nobody's investigating dark matter. No one's trying to find it. It's literally just plugging in what would be needed to keep their noble ladder, to keep everything established intact and still make it seem like it's a viable explanation. Because when you get into adding a bunch of mass and gravitational effects, well, you would get redshift out of that. That galaxy would be extra redshifted due to all that extra mass. But even that doesn't change. Like even the influence of however dark matter is interacting with gravity, right? Whatever that is, whatever the gravitational field is, however it's increasing it to hold everything together, it still somehow isn't affecting the electromagnetic spectrum of light to cause it to have more redshift or anything like that. So there's absolutely no evidence for it. It's literally just to keep an old system intact to make it seem like it's super viable. Now, I think I'll leave it there and let you guys continue on before I catch up on the rest of the notes. But that's just to add the full context for what we're talking about for dark matter and like why it's not viable. It's like another reason, right? Like, hear me out, bro. How about this? We have no fucking clue how much a galaxy weighs, bro. How about we start there and then just back up a little bit and take the actual humble position and be like, we don't know what the fuck that thing is or how much it weighs, and we're not going to attribute physical properties to it just because it fits a periodicity. But anyway, continue.
I'll let Franko respond, and I'll read something, and then
No, I don't really know what to say. I don't know, except that as usual. No, I'm speechless. Say, not because I think you're right. It's just because I know how to respond to this. because again, the deduction, the consequence of what you said, if what you said is true, is that the whole community of astrophysicists is a bunch of idiots and
No,
people
no,
who
no,
live
no.
whole
Let me
lives.
cut. Let me no. Let me cut you off right there. I'm not saying you guys are a bunch of idiots. Not at all. There's a specific philosophical interpretation that is promoted within the mainstream, and you only get funding and et cetera, and acolytes and credentials by adhering to that. Now, Sacred brought up a guy named Holden Arp who was making a ton of observations in the sky regarding quasars and galaxies and their relationship with that filament you were talking about. You know, the old interconnected web of everything that's connected. Well, when you look out in the sky in different spectrums of light, what you'll find is that these so-called quasars that are supposed to be way further than galaxies in terms of distance are actually physically connected by a filament. And he kept trying to point this out to everyone, and they kept ignoring him. And what they would do is they would basically just censor him. You know how when you submit a paper and you have referees that review your stuff, he would get into these 3-4 year arguments with these referees because like he would show the context of what they were, you know, objecting to, and it was just pure dog shit. It was just like, I don't like what you're saying and you're wrong. Like not even addressing any of it. And they ended up banning that guy from using telescopes in America. All the observatories in America, he got banned from them. He had to leave the country and go to Britain and get hired over there and continue his work over there because he had a difference of opinion for the interpretation of everything going on, and he couldn't get anything published. So it's not that you guys are all a bunch of idiots. There's a specific framework of interpretation, and if you don't adhere to that, or if you deviate from it, and if you don't try and make it work, and you point out any flaws in it, you get got. So I wouldn't say you guys are a bunch of idiots. It would be more like you're a bunch of pussies, right?
I wouldn't say that, bro.
I would just to throw salt on Franko because he always wants to virtue signal about everything.
Yeah, we have pussies because we have female astrophysicists, and I very much I have a very high esteem of them.
Yeah, you should have left that joke at home, bro.
So, like, just imagine that, Franko. Imagine you made a discovery, and then they just kicked you out of the community because they didn't like it. What would you do?
The acceleration of the expansion was totally unexpected and was something that shook the paradigm because people, as I told before, when I was a student and when I took my very light cosmology course in 1988, the big problem was the critical density of the universe, and the fact that the universe was not flat globally, not in the way you think. It was flat in a relativistic way. So it's in a space-time kind of way. But
yeah, you know, in a decimal manifold.
Yes, flat manifold. Yes, and then the discovery came at the end of the 90s with the analysis of supernovae, type 1 supernovae, type 1a supernovae, that the universe is accelerating. That's why I personally, I'm not a cosmologist, as I said many times. So I'm not an expert, but personally, I was not really actually believing this because I said I've seen this before. People claiming that they've discovered something so incredibly shaking and so incredibly revolutionary about the universe, and then 20 years later claiming something different. And so I said, I think this is temporary, will go away, but it's not gone away, and it's been confirmed for the past 25 years. So, but it's new. It's not, and it's something that shook. It was making a claim like there's something like dark energy, and we hadn't thought of that before, and this makes us think that there's an energy density that we cannot explain at the moment, and is makes up 70% of the energy content of the universe, something like that.
Well, Franco,
It's
why are you so
very
okay
strong.
with not? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But why are you so okay with not knowing certain things within your framework, but then you pressing us about having to explain every little thing that you have questions about? Don't you see how that's a little bit unfair? I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just wanted to ask you that real quick.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure I got what you said, but as I was saying, it is something that shook the paradigm, and was accepted because it was confirmed, and then we had a lot of explanations. I was just reading the abstract of one paper because while I was searching about this redshift and things like this, and I learned what this model is because I only heard it mentioned by my friend, my astrophysicist friend, who was my guest a couple of months ago here, and he's working in Munich. He's an astrophysicist, and was a fellow student of mine, the same age, and he's a friend, and he works on the Euclid project, and there he was telling me that the latest data studying correlation functions in the distribution of galaxies in the observed universe is currently disproving one of the alternative models which was proposed to explain the accelerated expansion. And this model, one of the authors, this is called the DGP model. I just checked it. I can give you. It's Dvali, Gabadage, Porrati, and the third author, the P in the DGP model acronym, is Massimo Porrati, whom I know very, very well. He's a friend. He's now in New York. He's a theoretical physicist. I've known him because he's 2 years senior, 2 years older than myself, and we were in the same university, and I'm known for 40 plus years. And this is one, but I didn't know that he had put forward a model, an alternative model of gravity, of cosmology, actually postulating that the universe is actually 5-dimensional instead of 4-dimensional, and this using this model would avoid the need of the cosmological constant and other or dark energy to explain the acceleration, would naturally sort of explain the acceleration of the universe. And this model makes other predictions, because this is the way things work. You say, okay, we have this observation, the universe is expanding at an accelerated rate. We have this observation. How can we explain that? Dark energy is one explanation, cosmological constant one explanation. A number of other explanations have been put forward, and this was one that was put forward in 2000 something. In 2000, year 2000. I'm reading Wikipedia right now, and this model has been tested against other.
Wikipedia.
Sorry, why do you need this kind of sounds? Okay, but it was because I'm reading what this model is. And then I didn't read the papers itself themselves. But
Bro, we understand Franco papers. He ain't read for 2 weeks. He jumped straight to Wikipedia, man. Oh my goodness.
Wikipedia can give you very useful information. Okay, the start, level 0 information. Okay, so just to know what
this is non sequitur though, Franco. But I'm listening, but I'm waiting for the point because I'm going to tell you why.
The point is that there have been many proposals of many alternative models. For instance, this is one called BGP model, explaining the observed acceleration without using the dark energy. So there have been proposed models. These models are the way things work is that when you have a model, you don't just use it to explain one observation, because that would be ad hoc. You use that model to make other predictions about other observations, and then you make the other observation and see if the prediction is matched. And I've just seen while I was looking. Another paper measuring redshift, which agreed with both the current model and the BGP model. But
all that searching, you ain't look up Hall and ARP though.
But sorry,
Doing all that searching, but you ain't search what you don't know about, which is Hall and ARP. Come on, bro, that ain't fair.
I'm not getting what you say. Let me finish. What I'm
Bro,
saying.
that's why you're not listening. What we're saying. Look up Halton ARP. Okay, look up Halton ARP. Go ahead. I'm listening.
I'm saying that this model, for instance, by my friend Porrati, has been disfavored by observations done by the latest space telescopes, and particularly about predictions in the 2-point correlation function in the mass distribution or in the cosmic wave macro background. I don't know exactly, in some correlation function which has been measured on large scale.
Disproves heliocentric.
So this has been disproved. So you see that there are alternative models, and they can be disproved or proved. You test with observation. So if this guy, I don't know, if he has an alternative model, then there's no reason for not testing it against observations. It's not like, it doesn't work like that, as you say. It's not like that. You have this guy, this Massimo Porrati, has put forward this alternative model, which is an alternative model. It's not the one that you say that grants us money, and he was not thrown out because it's perfectly reasonable, and it was tested. Some observations prove it, or are in favor of it. Some observations are against it, and so it's been, as far as I understand, it's been falsified. So it works like this.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, right? Modified Newtonian dynamics is proposed in part to dismiss or having to account for dark matter. Am I correct?
No, say it again.
That modified Newtonian dynamics, part of its implementation or usage is to dismiss or not having to account for dark matter. Am I correct?
No, not that I know of. There have been some proposals of modifying Newtonian gravity in order to explain rotational curves, but it's not. This has not been confirmed by other observations.
When I look up, is dark matter required for modified Newtonian dynamics? It says no. Dark matter is not required for modified Newtonian dynamics.
It's the other way around. It's the other way around. The modified Newtonian dynamics does not explain well the observations.
What?
Again.
They're developing, bro. Okay. Hold on. 1 second. Let me go get what I just read. But I still want to read something else, and I know Coffee is waiting. But hold on. Let me just go grab it real quick.
This is why I'm saying that spoken discussion is not the way things are done. You discuss on written things and on papers and on equations and data again, because with words, apart from language barriers, as you like to say, but it's not something that you can, either you record it, or, for instance, I cannot understand names very well, and I need to look things up. One doesn't have always the prompt answer to something, which is not a fault.
Yeah, but then when we put it on paper, y'all dismiss it if it's not from a reputable organization. We've been sent you papers, right? We did that.
Yeah, real quick, Franco, on that note, because you always say that, right? And you're like, Alan dismisses this and that. One time I sent you that Thomas Phipps guy, the first order invariant stuff for Maxwell's equations. You didn't even read it. You just called him a crackpot. And then, and didn't even tell me anything about the math or the specifics or like debunk it or show how it doesn't work or why he was wrong. You literally just called him a crackpot and then basically insinuated I was retarded for listening to the guy. So, And by the way, I sent you Arp's book if you want to, not read that either, but it's available if you want to check it out. It's a really interesting story. All the cosmology discoveries he made and how he was repeatedly dismissed and censored by the referees to because what he was putting forward would challenge, the Big Bang theory essentially.
You have about crackpots. Just one thing. You have no idea how many crackpots exist in the world. If every one of them was correct, you would have, I don't know. And of course they contradict each other. So
maybe you are the crackpots.
Yeah. So here's the thing, though, Franco. He might be a crackpot, but you didn't look at the math or tell me why his math makes him a crackpot.
Because one doesn't have the time. I also have a job.
So I guess we'll never know then, will we? You can't really say the guy's a crackpot if you haven't even looked at his math, though.
That's the reason why we have the peer review system, and because
we
cannot look at
all.
We cannot look at all the thing that is sent to by people who are not really in their right minds, or they're
not falling in line. So
that's just projection, Franko. We literally have nothing to substantiate that. Not to mention, when we sent you papers that were peer reviewed, you hand-waved dismissed them because you didn't like the journal itself, and then you ran to the TL to ask your
if they didn't like the journal, it's because they're not peer reviewed.
Okay, this is your personal opinion, Franko. You are continuously discrediting genetic fallacy sources because you don't like where it's coming from versus the information that's being presented. Do you see the problem with that? When we do that, we're denying science, but you can do that because why? You have a PhD? Tell me why it's okay for you to dismiss information, but we can't.
Again, because there's a system that has been put.
You don't say.
Told you.
Dude. This is what we're talking about, Franko. I just gave you.
Let him try.
Yeah, I just gave him examples though of referees censoring and peer review, and like the people couldn't get their stuff published, and they have to go and self-publish it, and then you're like, oh, it's not even published by peer review. It must be dog shit. It's so like you're a part of the problem, bro. But go ahead.
Yeah, let's hear what he has to say. Go ahead, Franko.
No, I don't like this kind of indictment and trials and so on. I don't like this thing. This attitude. I'm saying that I.
That's not fair, Franko. Franko, hold on. I'm gonna let you finish, Franko, but that's not fair, right? Because you brought the conversation here. You said we shouldn't be able to have these conversations unless it's on paper. We said, well, we sent you papers. You said, well, I can't look at those papers because some of them aren't reputable. And we said, well, why do you get to dismiss information when it's convenient for you, but we can't? And now you're saying, oh, I don't want to be indicted. You see why we here, though?
Some papers I looked at. For instance, I looked at some of the writings of Dr. Bennett.
Not all the Franko.
I did look at some of them. Some others, I just before reading all the paper, I look at the journal because there's this sort of convention that and the system that allows you to not waste your time by reading things that are not worth reading, and there's a system that decides this, because otherwise I can assure you that we would waste our time all the time.
We understand what you're
saying. I've received myself a number of emails by people claiming that have covered the theory of everything.
We understand that.
They were missed by the system, and people were and the system was chasing them out because they were against it, and because they would shake the paradigm, and it was bullshit. I read them; it was bullshit, and I wasted a lot of time reading that. So that's why the system is, I trust it to be selective in this respect.
All right, Franko, we understand that there's going to be times that it works. No one's denying that. It's the best that we got. But there's peer review papers on how peer review is a flawed process. But we're just saying it's not fair for you to play victim when you're the one that brought us down this road, when we're having conversations about things that you haven't heard about. And we're talking about why you haven't heard about it, right? Just to bring this all the way back full circle. We're just trying to show you how geocentrism is viable. And I guess listening earlier, we were actually showing you why it's actually more viable than heliocentrism. We get into all the specifics of why it's more viable, but at least we have to agree that geocentrism is a viable framework, whether it's kinematically or dynamic. That's the crux, that's the basis and foundation of this conversation. So with all that being said, even if you disagree with some of the premises, being that you haven't heard about some of the challenges that we presented, like Halton art, which hopefully you will look into, you at least agree that it's equally viable. Real simple.
No, personally, I don't think it's equally viable, but okay.
Then attack the argument rather than the source. That's called an ad hominem.
Can I just ask Franko, since you just brought it up, Sacred? Franko, if you were to receive a peer-reviewed paper telling how peer-reviewed is flawed, what would that mean to you?
Telling me what?
A peer-reviewed paper. Sorry, maybe my mic died. A peer-reviewed paper expounding on how peer-reviewed itself is flawed.
I don't know how that can be peer-reviewed. I don't know. That would be a contradiction in terms. I know it's like, well, this is a sort of logical paradox.
Guess what, Franko?
What? Yeah, it's a logical paradox. Like say,
No shit, huh? Like a twin paradox? That's crazy. Yo, Sacred, pull that twin out. But Franko, I know you're not a general relativity lad, but I got a question. You said that you didn't think geocentrism.
Disconnect.
Oh, dang.
While we wait for Franko to reload, that was fun.
Dude, that was crazy. My man was like, listen, guy, I look at the journal, because if it's not in the journal that tells me it's a good paper, I can just dismiss it, not waste any time on it. Duh. Like, yeah, dude, that's what we're pointing out. And he's like, no, but like I follow it to a T. Like, I don't think you understand. It's like, oh, no. We're on the same page, brother.